All right, so welcome to the first video in a very long time. Today we will be learning a reliable strategy for writing music that sounds nostalgic. Now, the key behind all good nostalgic sounding music is to provoke a mix of both happy and sad emotions without going too intense in either direction. And in this video, we're going to learn how this is actually pretty easy to accomplish in your own music. We'll start by looking at the type of harmony you want to work with, and then we'll cover a couple tips for writing nostalgic sounding melodies. So with that, let's get started.
All right, so our first step is to set the general tempo that we want to work with. Now, most nostalgic music will tend to work with slower or moderate tempi. So I recommend working somewhere between the 70 to 100 beat per minute range. For this example, we are going to focus towards the lower end of that range and stick to about 70 BPM. Now, once we've got this taken care of, it's a simple matter of coming up with our chord progression. Now, I've already shared multiple videos explaining how to write effective chord progressions, so we're not going to go too deeply into that topic here. Instead, we want to focus on what actually makes a chord progression sound nostalgic. However, if you do want to learn more about harmony and writing strong chord progressions, check out the link to my playlist on harmony in the description below. So back to the topic of nostalgia. Now, this is pretty simple and straightforward. If you are trying to create a nostalgic sound with your music, you'll want to write a chord progression that works with mostly seventh chords and maybe a few ninths. Seventh chords work really well for this type of music because they help blur the lines between traditionally dark and traditionally bright sounds. You see, for the most part, major triads, like C major, are associated with very bright qualities, which makes them perfect for happier music, things like love themes or adventure themes. But on the other hand, minor triads, like E minor, are associated with dark qualities that are useful for both dark and sad themes. Now, what a seventh chord does is it combines the two associations into a single chord. For example, a C major 7. This chord contains all the notes needed for a C major triad and an E minor triad. When the two combine, we get conflicting messages on what mood to associate with the sound, which is what helps give us a much more nostalgic vibe to the harmony in general. You can double down on this effect by including a few or more ninth chords in your progression as well, but these can be a bit tricky since not every chord in a key will have a ninth that you can use. So I recommend checking out my video on extended chords if you're interested in learning more. Now, before we move on, let's give our chord progression a quick listen. Awesome. So the next step is to write our melody. Now, usually whenever I write a melody, I like to start by building a general shape using the notes found in my underlying chord progression. Usually, I'll stick to just 2 notes per chord. These notes are called target tones, since any other notes we end up adding will just be focused on connecting these notes. And there we go. Now, the trick to making sure that your melody sounds nostalgic will be to focus on including at least a few different sevenths and ninths in this initial melodic shape. As a general rule, every 2 measures should include at least 1 seventh or ninth in that shape. And that is exactly what I have done here. If we take a look at these first 2 measures, you'll see that I have the B natural from C major 7. If we look at these next 2 measures, you'll see that I have the F natural from G dominant 7. The next 2 measures, you'll see I have the D, which is the 9th from C major 7, 9. And then in these last few measures, I have the F, once again from G dominant 7. So every 2 measures I've made sure to include at the very least 1/7 from the underlying harmony. So let's give a quick listen to what we've got so far. All right, awesome. So we can already hear that kind of beautiful nostalgic quality starting to form. The very last thing we need to do is to just simply finish the melody. For this, I'll need to write a strong motif in my first 2 measures. Now, once again, I do have a video that goes in depth on this topic in the description below. So for now, let's just suffice to say that after a little bit of time, I came up with this idea for my motif. You'll notice that the C natural isn't featured nearly as prominently in my new motif as it was in the original shape. But that's okay. The whole point of the initial melodic shape is to just give me a foundation to work with. There is absolutely no pressure to try and stick too closely to the original ideas, just so long as I'm happy with the way that things are developing. So now that I have my motif figured out, it's just a simple matter of using a reliable musical structure to help build my motif into a full melody. For this video, I'm using something called period structure, which is pretty simple and straightforward. I'll start with my original motif, then I write a second new motif for the next 2 bars, before repeating the same exact original motif, making only a few changes if necessary to make it fit over the new chords. Then finally, I end the entire thing with a simple cadential idea. Now, the cadence doesn't need to be fancy or overly interesting. It just needs to be a simple way of ending the phrase. If you would like to go a little more in-depth on writing melodies, check out the links below to learn more. And once we've cleaned things up with a bit of proper voice leading in the chords, we are left with a simple but effective sketch that perfectly captures that nostalgic feeling we were looking for.
So this brings us to the end of yet another video. I hope you found it helpful. If you would like to learn more about music and emotions, I have a brand new online class that will be open in April. It's dedicated to all kinds of different strategies and tools for studying and portraying emotions with your music. If you're interested in learning more, I've got the link in the description of the video. I want to take a quick moment to thank all of my generous patrons who make videos like this possible, as well as each of you who show your support through the many kind messages, comments, and emails that I receive. They really do mean a lot to me. So until next time, keep studying, keep working hard, and keep writing new music.